Helios 4 was a dying world. The sky burned orange from years of bombardment. Ash drifted across the colony plains where once crops had grown. The last humans here lived in underground bunkers, cut off from everything beyond their failing walls. Commander Nora Kane stood beside a damaged gun turret. Her armor was scorched, her rifle low on charge. She looked up as the alarms began to howl. The Dravari were coming again. "Positions," she shouted. "They'll hit the west trench first. Hold until we see their transport." Her soldiers moved fast but tired. Some were teenagers, some too old to fight. They carried old rifles and broken armor. Above them, the enemy dropships came through the clouds, engines screaming. Blue light cut across the sky. The first blast hit the perimeter wall. Metal and sand flew through the air. The ground shook. Nora ducked behind cover and shouted orders. The defense line fired back, thin red streaks against the heavy fire raining down. Then something strange happened. A streak of white light fell from the upper atmosphere, burning fast, not a dropship or a bomb. It hit the ground beyond the battlefield and sent a wave of dust across the horizon. "Did we hit something?" a soldier yelled. Nora raised her binoculars. Through the smoke, she saw a figure walking toward the fight. One man, no armor, moving straight through the Dravari fire. The enemy turned their guns on him. The blasts hit, but the man kept walking. Then he began to run. He reached the front line in seconds. The first Dravari soldier aimed at him. Ethan's hand caught the weapon, snapped it in half, and drove the barrel through the soldier's chest. He turned, grabbed another, slammed him into the ground. He moved like a storm, silent and precise. Every motion ended with a kill. The humans stopped firing. They only watched. Nora stood frozen. "Who is that?" No one answered. Within minutes, the battlefield fell quiet. Smoke drifted. Alien bodies covered the dirt. Ethan walked through them without looking back. His eyes scanned the trench until he saw Nora. He stopped a few feet away. "Who commands here?" he asked. Nora lowered her rifle slowly. "I do." He nodded once. "Then get your wounded inside. The next wave is coming." She stared at him. "You're human, but what are you?" He met her eyes. A soldier who woke up late. She didn't believe it at first, but something in his voice felt real. She signaled her team to regroup. Together, they pulled the wounded back into the tunnels while Ethan covered the entrance. Inside, the bunker lights flickered. The air was thick with smoke and fear. Ethan studied the old maps on the wall. "You've been holding this colony for how long?" "Too long," Nora said. "We send messages. No one answers." "They will now," he said. "I found your signal." She looked at him sharply. "That was years ago." "I followed it." She realized then that this man had crossed space alone. Her doubt turned to something else. "You came here to help us." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the scanners. "They'll return with more ships." He turned to her soldiers. "You fight well, but you fight like prey. I'll show you how to fight like hunters." The men and women around him exchanged looks. Some were afraid, others were ready. They trained through the night. Ethan showed them how to move, how to shoot, how to use cover. He rebuilt old guns with alien parts. He pushed them until their hands bled. But they followed. They could feel something rising again, something human. When dawn came, Nora stood beside him outside the bunker. The horizon burned red. "You really think we can win?" she asked. He looked at the sky. "We don't need to win. We need to remind them who we are." Before she could answer, alarms blared again. A massive ship broke through the clouds, twice the size of the last wave. Nora's voice tightened. "They found us." Ethan smiled faintly. "Good. Now they'll see what a human war looks like." The alien salvage ship drifted through the dark, silent wreck of Atlas 9. Its lights cut through dust and frozen metal. The air was dead, the silence heavy. For 200 years, no one had set foot here. Commander Kareth walked at the front of his team. His armor hissed with each breath. His species had fought humans long ago, and they had won. At least that was what history said. He didn't believe in ghosts, but this place felt wrong. "Pick clean what's left," he ordered. "Human tech sells high. Stay alert." The crew spread out, scanners flashing blue light over the cold floor. They moved past crushed doors and rusted guns. In the center chamber stood a pod. Its metal was scratched but still active. Lights blinked along its side, soft and slow, like a heartbeat. A technician touched the screen. Symbols in an old human language glowed red. "Still powered, Commander, but it's locked." Kareth stepped closer. "Can you open it?" The technician hesitated. "There's a warning. Something about not reactivating." Kareth frowned. Humans wrote warnings on everything. "Break it open." The machine hissed as they forced a charge into its core. The lights turned from red to green. Steam rolled across the floor. The sound of pressurized air echoed through the chamber. Inside, a figure began to move. The crew aimed their rifles. Kareth shouted, "Hold fire!" The pod opened with a deep crack. A man stepped out. Bare feet hit the metal floor. His eyes scanned the room with calm, steady focus. He looked human, but something about him felt wrong. Too still, too aware. "Identify yourself," Kareth demanded. The man didn't answer. His gaze swept over the weapons, the exits, and the air vents. He spoke at last, voice quiet and rough. "Where am I?" Kareth grinned. "You're property of the Dravari Empire now. Move, human." Ethan Cole looked at him. His expression didn't change. Then he took a single step forward. The nearest guard fired. A flash of light filled the room. Ethan vanished from sight, reappearing behind the guard. The sound of bone breaking cut through the noise. The guard fell without a word. Kareth shouted, "Kill him!" Blasts tore through the air. Ethan moved faster than they could track. A punch crushed a rifle. A kick threw one of the soldiers into the wall. The chamber turned into chaos. Metal clanged. Screams echoed. The lights flickered. One by one, the crew fell. When the noise stopped, Kareth was alone. His weapon trembled in his hands. Ethan stood a few feet away, breathing steady, eyes cold. "What are you?" Kareth asked. Ethan tilted his head as if thinking. "A mistake you shouldn't have made." Kareth fired, but Ethan caught his arm and slammed him into the control panel. Sparks burst across the wall. The commander gasped as Ethan leaned close. "What year is it?" Ethan asked. Kareth coughed. "Year 719 after the fall of Earth." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Earth fell." Kareth tried to smile. "Long ago. You're nothing but a myth." Ethan looked at the stars through the cracked window. Then it's time they remembered. He pressed a command key. The pod's systems linked with the ship's network. Lights flickered across every console. Kareth shouted, "What are you doing?" Ethan didn't answer. The doors sealed shut. The ship's engines roared to life without command. Kareth realized too late that the human was taking control. Ethan turned to him. "You wanted to wake a soldier. Now you'll see what that means." Outside the wreck, a single signal burst into the void. A warning beacon. It carried 6 words across the stars. "We found something. We shouldn't have." The Dravari Empire intercepted the distress call from Atlas 9. Static filled the command chamber as the signal repeated again and again. "We found something. We shouldn't have." Then silence. Fleet Admiral Theros stood over the display table. His scaled hands gripped the edge. Around him, officers whispered. He turned and barked, "Send 3 cruisers to investigate. If it's human tech, I want it destroyed." Far from their command world, the 3 ships dropped out of warp near the broken remains of Atlas 9. The wreck was quiet. No response came to their hails. They sent boarding teams. Minutes passed. then hours. No one returned. Theros received the final image from a helmet feed, a human figure standing among bodies, staring into the camera. The feed cut out. The room went silent. One officer whispered, "Is that possible? They were extinct." Thera's voice was low. "Nothing human stays buried forever." Inside one of the captured ships, Ethan Cole sat in the dark. The control panels glowed faintly against his face. He watched data streams pass by, learning everything. 2 centuries of alien war, history, maps, code. He absorbed it all with calm focus. The ship's AI voice spoke. "Unidentified human, name Ethan Cole. Access override detected. You are using command-level restricted systems." Ethan spoke quietly. "I need information. Tell me what happened to Earth." The AI paused. "Earth was destroyed during the First War. No human governments remain. Surviving populations were scattered or absorbed." Ethan leaned back in the chair. His hands gripped the armrests. "Destroyed? How?" "Orbital bombardment, Dravari Fleet Alpha Prime." The room felt smaller. His jaw tightened. His voice came out flat. "Show me the record." The screen showed burning skies, cities falling, oceans boiling. He watched in silence until the image ended. His breathing was steady, but his eyes were not. He stood and looked through the window. The stars stretched cold and endless. The war that killed his world was still going. The same enemy still ruled the stars. He walked to the main terminal. "Ship, what is your name?" "Dravari vessel Toravex, Scout class." "Not anymore." He began typing commands. "You belong to me now." "Identity verification required." He looked at the glowing screen. "Override, Project Ares, code Sigma 12. The ship paused. Then the lights shifted from red to white. "Acknowledged. Human command recognized." Ethan exhaled slowly. The power returned to the engines. The ship came alive under his control. He opened a file marked Strategic Command Network. Thousands of system names flashed by. He searched for signs of survivors. Most colonies were erased or enslaved. Ethan stared at the screen. His voice was quiet. "They're still out there." He loaded the coordinates. The engines roared as the ship turned towards deep space. In the Dravari Council chamber, alarms sounded. Admiral Theros watched the reports come in. Their scout ship had gone rogue. It was moving at impossible speed, hacking every system it passed. "Who is doing this?" one officer shouted. Theros watched the screen. The ship's ID flashed, Toravex. It was headed straight toward Dravari territory. "Not who," he said. "What?" Back aboard the stolen vessel, Ethan gripped the controls. "Echo," he said. "Are you with me?" The AI's voice softened. "I am now, Commander Cole." He looked ahead at the swirling light of hyperspace. His reflection in the glass looked older than he remembered. Then set course for Helios 4. The ship jumped into the void. Behind him, the Dravari Empire began to panic. At that same moment, deep in an old mining colony, a small group of human survivors picked up a faint new signal. It was not a call for help this time. It was a warning. They listened to it twice before anyone spoke. "It's human," one of them said, "but it's not from here." The Dravari dreadnought broke through the upper clouds, black and massive, its engines shaking the air. Lightning flashed around its hull. The Helios 4 colony shook under the thunder of its arrival. Soldiers ran through the trenches. Sirens blared. Ethan stood on the ridge, wind tearing at his clothes. He watched the ship descend. His face was calm, his eyes narrow. Nora stood beside him, gripping her rifle. "They'll level the whole colony," she said. "We can't stop that ship." "Yes, we can," Ethan said, "but not from here." He turned to the group of soldiers behind him. "I'm going up there." Nora grabbed his arm. "You'll never make it inside alone." "I don't need to make it inside," he said. "I need to reach the control deck." Before she could argue, he was already moving. He took one of the old Dravari transports they had captured, rewired it, and lifted off through the dust. The others watched him vanish into the clouds. The dreadnought opened fire on the colony. Massive beams tore into the ground, ripping open defenses. Nora gave orders through static. Hold the tunnels. Don't let them breach the core. Inside the enemy ship, alarms were blaring. The Dravari crew shouted as their sensors tracked an unauthorized craft approaching. Unknown vessel closing fast, one officer called. Single life form on board. Destroy it, ordered the captain. They fired. Ethan's ship spun through the blasts, smoke trailing. He brought the transport close to the hull, opened the hatch, and jumped. The air whipped past him as he landed hard on the ship's surface. His boots clanged against the metal. He started cutting through the armor with a stolen plasma torch. Inside, the Dravari sensors went wild. Hull breach on Sector 12. Send troops. Ethan tore open the panel and climbed inside. He moved fast through narrow maintenance corridors, avoiding patrols. The ship's lights flashed red. His breathing was steady. He moved like he had done this 100 times before. He found a guard post and took 2 soldiers down before they even saw him. He took their weapons and kept moving. The sound of engines roared under his feet. The air smelled of ozone and fuel. He could feel the power of the ship vibrating through the walls. When he reached the control deck door, he stopped. He looked through the window. Inside stood Nora, bound in restraints, bruised but alive. She saw him and shook her head slowly. There were too many guards. Ethan didn't wait. He charged. The door blew open with a blast. The room exploded in chaos. Blaster fire cut the air. Ethan rolled behind a console, returned fire, and moved between the shadows. One guard fell, then another. He was a blur of movement and impact. The captain raised his weapon, aiming at Nora. Ethan saw it and threw a blade across the room. It hit the alien in the neck. The captain dropped. He reached Nora and cut her restraints. She fell forward, coughing. "You shouldn't have come," she said. He helped her up. "You said we couldn't stop it. Let's prove you wrong." They ran to the main console. The controls were locked in the Dravari language, but Ethan's hands moved fast. He linked his implant to the system, bypassing the code. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Turning their weapons against them." The ship began to shake. Lights flickered. The Dravari fleet around the planet started to receive new orders, fake ones, all sent from the Dreadnought's ID. Every ship turned its guns on each other. Nora stared at the screen. "You're making them destroy themselves." "They built this war," Ethan said. "Now they can watch it burn." An explosion ripped through the deck. The blast threw them off their feet. Smoke filled the room. Ethan pulled Nora through the flames, but alarms screamed louder. "They activated the planet weapon," she gasped. "It's targeting Helios." Ethan stopped. His face hardened. "Then I'll stop it myself." He looked through the viewport. The weapon array on the ship's hull began to glow. The energy was building. If it fired, Helios 4 would vanish. He turned to Nora. "Get to the escape pod. I'm not leaving you." He handed her a data drive. "You have to. It has the coordinates of every Dravari command base. The war doesn't end here. Go." She took it with shaking hands. "What about you?" Ethan looked at the glowing weapon core. "Someone has to make sure it never fires." He pushed her into the escape pod and sealed the door. She hit the glass, shouting his name, but the pod launched. The blast threw it clear of the dreadnought. Inside the burning ship, Ethan ran toward the weapon core. Fire lit the corridors. The hull groaned under pressure. He reached the main reactor and started pulling power lines with his bare hands. Energy tore through the ship. His eyes glowed white from the overload. Outside, Nora's pod fell toward the surface. She saw the dreadnought start to break apart. Light swallowed it, then silence. The explosion spread across the sky. The colony below went dark. The people watched the burning wreck fall through the clouds. Nora landed hard in the desert. She climbed from the pod, trembling. She looked at the falling fire above and whispered, "He did it." Then her radio came alive. A weak voice spoke through static. "Helios Control, this is Ethan Cole. I'm not finished yet." Smoke rolled across the wreckage of Helios 4's sky. The Dravari dreadnought had fallen in pieces, its core burning in the upper atmosphere. The colony below was quiet for the first time in years. But Nora Kane didn't rest. She ran through the sand toward the crash site, the wind hot and sharp against her face. Her radio crackled again. The same voice, faint, broken. "Helios Control, this is Ethan Cole." She pressed the transmitter tight. "Ethan, where are you? Do you copy?" Static answered. Then a whisper. "Still here. Not much time." She climbed over black metal and burning fragments until she reached what was left of the Dreadnought S command deck. The structure was twisted, glowing red from heat. Inside, she saw movement. Ethan was alive, barely. His arm was burned, his armor melted into his skin. He was pulling cables from the main reactor, forcing power into the system. Sparks burst around him. Nora shouted over the roar. "Stop! You'll kill yourself." He didn't turn. "If I stop, the planet killer charges again. It's half active. I have to drain it." She stepped closer, covering her mouth from the heat. "You already saved us. Let it go." He looked at her then, eyes calm but distant. "If I stop now, they'll rebuild it. They'll use it again on someone else." Nora grabbed his arm. "You don't have to do this alone." He gave a faint smile. "I was built to do this alone." The ground shook. Above them, the clouds tore apart as Dravari ships arrived in orbit. The Empire's high fleet had come to see what destroyed their dreadnought. Dozens of ships moved in formation, ready to burn the planet clean. Ethan turned to the console. "They're coming for us, for you." Nora raised her rifle. "Then we fight." He looked at the wreckage. "No, we end it." He connected a cable from the reactor to the ship's main cannon system. "This ship still has one shot left." Nora realized what he planned. "You'll never survive that blast." He didn't answer. He pulled the lever. The ground vibrated. Energy screamed through the wreck's spine, building faster than the reactor could handle. The weapon turned upward, aiming at the enemy fleet. Nora stumbled back as light flooded the deck. "Ethan," he shouted over the rising noise, "get back to the colony. You have the data. Humanity has a future again." The ship's systems roared alive. Ethan's hands gripped the controls. He focused on the target above, his voice low. "You wanted to end humanity. This is your answer." The cannon fired. A white beam tore through the sky, cutting across the fleet. The explosion turned the upper clouds into fire. Every ship caught in the blast disintegrated. The night became day. When the light faded, half the Dravari armada was gone. The rest fled, engines burning hard. The dreadnought's core melted from overload. The structure began to collapse. Nora screamed into her radio. "Ethan, get out!" The signal cracked. His voice came through once more, quiet but steady. "Remember what we were." Then the channel went silent. The wreck erupted in flame, throwing shockwaves across the desert. Hours later, Nora stood on a high ridge overlooking the crater. The sun was rising. The sky was filled with smoke, but the colony still stood. People gathered behind her, watching the remains of the ship burn. One of the young soldiers asked, "Was he really human?" She nodded slowly. "He was more human than any of us." The wind blew across the sand. The world felt different, free but heavier. Then her radio came alive again. A faint signal, not from Helios, not from Dravari space. A woman's voice spoke through static. "Project Ares unit detected. Multiple signals awakening." Nora stared at the horizon. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He wasn't the only one.